Welcome to The Problem, the series where I sit down, find one small, minute thing, and then discuss it at length because I need a full video. Today we're going to be talking about the Loki TV show, and then I'm going to show you the craziest shoe I have ever bought in my life. It'll be at the end of the video for those of you who care, because seemingly a lot of you care about what I put on my feet ever since we showed my sneakers in one of our shorts, but whatever. Today I want to talk about the Loki TV show. The Loki TV show is a series that came out in 2021. It was a part of the initial Phase 4 of the MCU's television push. We got things like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and of course we got Loki. There was a huge amount of TV shows coming out that year, and you can agree or disagree all you want. It's not the point of today's video, but the general consensus from the public was the more shows that we got, the worst overall they got. People in general were like, this one was okay. This one was okay. Until eventually we got to She-Hulk, where majority of the people were like, why did we even bother? Now, I enjoyed She-Hulk. We're not going to have that discussion here. I think it was a C-tier sitcom. But let's go back to Loki. One of the few series that people kind of across the board agreed with being a good series. Now, to recap what happened in season 1 of Loki, a different Loki from the timeline, not the one who died in Infinity War and Endgame, but a different Loki was pulled out of his timeline before he became a hero and then kind of went on the hero's journey a second time. He was pulled out of the timeline because they thought it was Loki going through and messing with the timeline, which it kind of was. Sylvie is a variant of Loki, a female Loki, and she was going around messing with the timeline trying to figure out what's going on. Eventually, Sylvie and Loki end up going to the end of time, or they meet He Who Remains, which is basically Kang at the end of the timeline. I will never call him Kang, and that's an inside joke that you may or may not be aware of, but He Who Remains was at the end of the timeline, and he basically told them that if they kill him, all of the actual Kangs are going to come out of the timeline and begin to start a war, a Kang war, if you will. Loki and Sylvie were trying to decide what was the better course of action, letting this He Who Remains at the end of the timeline kind of rule and control things with a singular primary timeline, or to kill him and let it branch off. The argument boils down to Sylvie's going to kill He Who Remains, kicks Loki through a time portal, and he gets sent back in time to the original point of the TVA's arrival and kicks off season 2. Now, this is where the problem with Loki comes in, and we'll come back to this after I tell you my thoughts on episode 1 of season 2. Now, episode 1 of season 2 picks up right where we left off, which is one of the best parts about a television show that does this. Loki has just arrived back in the past with the TVA at its inception or when he first arrived. It's a little unclear the exact moment he's come back, but he has come back before Loki himself has arrived, meaning nobody knows who he is. He's then flung through time. They refer to it as time slipping, something that can't be done in the TVA, in which he's jumping to different points within the timeline, trying to kind of solve the issue that Sylvie has created. By killing He Who Remains, the primary timeline has branched off into countless other directions, of which have also branched off into countless other directions. They basically created the multiverse, which in the MCU terms is kind of interesting because did they make the multiverse? Did it get made in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness? It's a little unclear which one was technically the one that made it, but if you go at the release dates, it would be Loki. So for the sake of argument right here, because I have seen online the argument go in both directions that the multiverse problems were created by Spider-Man. No, the multiverse problems are created by Loki. Honestly, I think the MCU is keeping this relatively vague because they want to make it a situation where you don't have to have watched the television show, but they also want to make it a situation where you don't have to have watched Spider-Man, but they kind of want you to watch both of them. You know, because that's kind of like their business. Watch everything we've ever created. But anyway, the multiverse is seemingly created. Now, this has created variations and variants and all kinds of stuff going on. Season 2 comes out the gate with just an explosion of a higher budget. The CG is incredible. The effects are off the wall right out of the gate. The acting is on point. Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston are incredible in their roles. This is what I wanted from a Loki season 2. It picks right up where we left off with the questions. Sylvie killed He Who Remains. What is going to happen next? It didn't delay. We didn't jump back to the beginning and Loki has to start his adventure over. No, it picks up right where it left off. And then it asks a dozen questions. Who's in charge? What Kang's in charge? How many Kangs are in charge? Who knows? Because, they're not all actually Kang. We've got Immortus and Ramatat, and we got all these different individuals who are possibly in charge of what's going on. And I stand by my statement, he who remains is he who remains. He is not Kang, because if I declare that he is Kang, I have to eat a shoe. We'll talk about shoes at the end of this. Anyway, Loki Season 2 was an incredible start. That's what I'm getting at. I loved it. I want to go more in depth. I want to spoil a whole bunch of stuff, but at the same time, I don't know what to really talk about without going beat by beat for exactly what happened in Loki, because it was happening so quickly and so fast that it didn't even feel like 45 minutes had passed, because Loki's just trying to figure out what's going on. I do want to say the star of this episode, OB. Oh my God, that character was incredible and he was funny. And Natalie, my wife, right off the bat was like, I love OB. Is he going to be in here more? And I hope he's in here more. The moment in which Owen Wilson went into the time stream thing, like the loom. I think they called it the loom to save Loki. The effects on that were incredible. The nail-biting tension. I mean, I know we were supposed to assume that Owen Wilson was going to lose his skin, which was a hilarious running gag where they were like, well, what's worse, being unraveled in time or losing your skin? I don't know which is the worst fate to go down. It was just a kind of a fun running gag. I loved it. And the effects for when he saves Loki were great. The tension was high for there not being any real tension. Like, I feel like the tension of both Owen Wilson and Loki are going to die would be better towards the end of the season instead of the end of the first episode where you're like, well, they're not going to die. We just started the season, but it was still really good. And like I said, loved OB and stuff like that. The post-credit scene with Sylvie seems to be in line with the usual MCU let's crack a joke moment. I get it. She's back in time. She's in the town with Victor Timely, but Victor Timely isn't implied. Nothing is implied. It's just, where is she? Wherever it is, they got a McDonald's because McDonald's paid for product placement. So it was fun. It was a fun ending, but no, you don't need it. You don't need any of that stuff. Overall, Loki Season 2 started off with a hell of a bang, and I loved it. And I thought it was great, and I'm excited to see where they're going to go with it. Now, what is the problem with Loki, Benny? Because you always find that one nitpick to make these videos, and then you talk about that. So, okay, I admit my problem with The Boys was a little bit of a reaching moment because I was assuming it might get bad. I'll admit some of these problems with videos is me kind of reaching for something that I can complain about. But I had an actual issue with Loki yesterday that got created by the MCU. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, and I want to get your opinions. The MCU has created a situation where you assume you need to watch every show, see every short, watch every commercial appearance, because in case everyone forgot, there was the whole thing of Noob Master, the guy that Thor fought on Fortnite. He was in a commercial for like Best Buy or something, and they brought Falcon in. So the internet at large decided to turn Noob Master into a canon event within it was a whole thing. So what I'm getting at is you're supposed to watch commercials. You're supposed to watch the TV shows. You're supposed to watch every movie. You're supposed to watch every short. That's the way the MCU has been built. You're supposed to watch everything between point A and point B, which following that logic, you would have to watch Loki, and then you would have to watch every movie that came out since the original Loki. Now, I don't have all of those memorized, but that would be What If, that would be She-Hulk, that would be Doctor Strange, that would be Spider-Man, that would be Ant-Man and Quantumania, that would be Guardians of the Galaxy, that would be, some people would tell you it involves Across the Spider-Verse because of the weird way they do things there. It would involve a lot is what I'm getting at. But for Loki Season 1 to 2, you actually don't need that at all. The way Loki Season 2 is structured, it picks up right where Season 1 left off. So basically, we are at the ending where Sylvie and Loki met He Who Remains, and Sylvie kicks him through the time door, and she kills He Who Remains, kicking off the event. Season 2 picks up with Loki arriving in the TVA, and now there's basically Kang statues everywhere, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. That is all you need to know to watch Loki Season 2. But the problem with Loki Season 2 is my wife and I started watching the show, and she looks to me and she goes, okay, what did I miss? And I'm like, well, here's the recap of Loki Season 1. And we went over that and I talked about it. And then in the standard MCU fashion, she's like, well, what did I miss between Loki and Loki Season 2? So, of course, I'm sitting here, like, you asked me that, I'm going to give you the answer. Well, technically, this created the Kangs, and there's one inside of Ant-Man Quantumania. So we have a Kang inside of there, and then there was a bunch of Kangs at the end of that. And she's like, well, who is Kang? I'm like, well, Kang is basically what He Who Remains becomes. He Who Remains is Kang technically at the end of a timeline, but he's not really Kang. But what happens is he basically creates Kangs across the timeline because different variations can actually become Kang. And so then she goes, that makes no sense. What are you talking about? And then I go, okay, well, do you remember Spider-Man Multiverse of Madness? And she's like, what? Why are you bringing up Spider-Man? I'm like, bear with me, sweetie. I'm trying to explain the MCU to you. Okay, so we got to go back into and then I went down a whole rabbit hole, okay? Bear in mind, I started that statement by telling her, just remember season 1 of Loki, and you'll be able to understand season 2. But it doesn't matter because her immediate thought was, I still missed something. And technically she did. Like, that is the problem with the MCU, because I can't look at her in the face and go, no, actually, you didn't miss anything. He Who Remains died, created a bunch of Kangs. Kang took over the TVA. That's literally what's happening in season 1 and season 2 of Loki. I couldn't tell her that because technically that did create the multiversal branching timelines, which does affect Spider-Man, which does affect Doctor Strange, which does affect Quantumania. There's an immediate amount of FOMO that people get when you tell them that there's an Easter egg, basically, that kind of gives a little bit more context to what you're dealing with. Yes, you can watch season 1 of Loki and season 2 of Loki and you have missed nothing. But if you watch extra stuff, it gives a little bit more context. And that's the problem with Loki, but more so the problem with the MCU. I don't remember the last time we were able to have a solo MCU movie that you could go see and it affects nothing at all. It's a standalone movie. Because if you went to see Ant-Man and Quantumania, Ant-Man Quantumania affects what's going to happen in Kang Dynasty. It also affects potentially what's going to be happening in Loki because of Victor Timely being another variant of Kang. You can't just go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because it's entirely predicated on Gamora having died and then coming back from Endgame. So if you didn't go see Infinity War and Endgame and saw what happened to Gamora, going from Guardians of the Galaxy 2 to Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you are missing a key component. Now, would you do that? No. Most sane people here who are a part of the MCU would go, okay, Guardians 2, Infinity War, Endgame, and Guardians 3. But I've made this argument since Endgame. Not every person is a sane person watching the MCU and everything that happens in it. Some people just go to the movies to have a fun night out, and they don't want required research and required homework to tell them what to do. All the way back to when Endgame came out, I'm the guy that came out and said Endgame is an incredible finale to the MCU. I loved it. It was an incredible movie for the MCU. But if you try to watch Endgame by itself, it's not a good movie. It doesn't give you enough context. It tries to give you a fun heist movie, but overall, you're still missing quite a bit. And the biggest response I would get from people is, well, why would you watch Endgame and not have watched any of the MCU? Well, Endgame's the highest grossing movie in the entire MCU, which tells me some people just went to go see it with their loved ones or friends or whatever. Not everyone was a Comicstorian watching everything. And for the record, I know I miss things myself, guys. I've notoriously told you that I don't know half the time a DC animated movie comes out, and it's literally my job to know these things. That's an entirely different argument. Like, why the hell does DC not just hire one marketing person? But we can make another video about that again later, because I'm pretty sure we already did. I've lost track of how many problem widths I have. But no, going back to Loki, my wife didn't like the response of just watch Loki 1 and Loki 2. She's not an MCU aficionado. She's the kind of person who will watch a movie with me. A couple of the shows she enjoyed to the point of she wants to watch them, but she's more of a gamer girl, basically. She plays more like Dark Souls and Final Fantasy and stuff like that. She's not super into the MCU. So for her to look at me and go, what do I need to know? And I tell her Loki 1 and 2, she's like, well, what did I miss between them? Because I think it's been like 2 years. Well, now I have to explain Multiverse of Madness again. I have to explain Spider-Man again, which she even saw those movies. I have to explain Quantumania, which she didn't see. And I also have to explain that Quantumania itself really doesn't matter because they just fight a Kang and kill him. But the post-credit scene, now that's kind of important to what's actually going on in Loki. It's a mess. It's a mess. We want movies that stand on their own. We want shows that stand on their own. But when you constantly do these Easter eggs and link them together, it kind of creates a problem for new viewers or casual viewers. Now, I know I'm the guy that also says they should be interlinked because it makes you want to see more movies because you're like, well, I want to know what's happening with Kang, so I gotta go see Quantumania. I am aware of the irony of this video, but isn't that the problem with the MCU as a whole at this point? We need to interlink things so that weirdos like me can sit here and tell you what you've missed and make a video about Easter eggs and do things like that. But at the same time, the MCU needs to have great jumping on points so that you know what to do with the MCU. Also, you need to kind of make things you need to make things very casual friendly so that people can kind of come and go as they please, get some stuff but not get some stuff. You know what it sounds like to me? The MCU is turning into modern comic books where you need to read 20 different comic books to find out one little factoid, and they have no clean way of telling you what to read and be a part of. It sounds to me like the MCU going on for 12 to 14 years is beginning to become as convoluted as the comic books themselves. It sounds to me like we've solved the problem because, well, we figured out the problem, but there's no solution because where do you go from here? You can't just make Loki 2 a clean cut 1 to season 2. You can't do it because everyone wants to know what they missed. And since it's the MCU, people know that they did miss something. And that's our problem right now. In terms of season 2, episode 1, I loved it. I'm super excited. And of course, I know what's going on, at least in episode 1. I mean, as far as the confusion of where the series is going, who the hell knows? But anyway, I like it. I like it a lot. But I don't know how people are supposed to understand what they're supposed to do. There is no guideline. And there is no fix for this. I don't have a fix. Normally, I can come up with hey, we should change this or fix this. I mean, the easy answer everyone's going to say is we reboot it. But will that actually work? Will it? How long, if we reboot the MCU, how long before they're like, multiverse portal, Chris Evans? And then you're just like, crud. We're right back here again. Anyway, that's it. That's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about Loki. And I did promise I got a crazy shoe. So this is a little bit more about me, Comicstorian. Dan and I have been working on a lot of fun shorts, and I thought it would be fun to dress like I dress going out of the house. A lot of times when we do these videos or I do podcasts, I'm sitting in the house. So I'm just wearing sweatpants or a dumpy t-shirt or whatever. I didn't realize that 90% of you assumed I didn't know how to dress. Shockingly, I've gotten more comments than I thought I was going to get about how I dress. Now, it was only like 10 across multiple platforms, but it's 10 more than I thought I was going to get about my clothing and shoe choice. So that was already, that's like what, 1,000% more than I thought I was going to get. But since a couple of you like the shoes that I was wearing in the recent shorts, I kind of got tricked by a friend. I got a friend who's an actual sneakerhead. And if you don't know what a sneakerhead is, it's someone who enjoys collecting sneakers and they try to resell them for the most part. I don't consider myself a sneakerhead. I have a lot of sneakers. I enjoy sneakers, but I wear everything that I buy. So I don't buy them for the sake of resell. But a friend was trying to get his hands on a rare pair of sneakers from Mischief. Now, if you don't know what Mischief is an art house kind of thing, and they basically take well-known properties and they make artistic and functional things out of them. What they made was the Mischief pump. Does anyone remember Reebok pumps where you would pump up when you wanted to play basketball? What if I told you Mischief made something with 11 pumps? So this is the Mischief Reebok sneaker. So if you ever want to pump it up, all of these are functional pumps. The best part is I picked this up for a friend only for him to say he doesn't want it. So now I have this Reebok in my collection. I don't know where I'm going to wear it, but I just wanted to show you guys because it seems like at least a few of you in the audience like sneakers as much as I do. So now I have the Mischief pumps. There's 11 of them, and I watched a review, and they all work. Maybe I'll put it in the background. Maybe I can do as a write-off. Oh, actually, I put it in the video right here, right? I can write it off now. Yeah, I'll just put it in the background, and you can all be like, what's that? Why does your shoe have so many pumps on it? Anyway, let me know what you think about Loki down below. If you enjoy shoes, let me know that too. And I'll see you guys next time right here at Comicstorian.